Welcome to Real Human Design Stories, where guests share their powerful personal stories of transformation through human design. I'm Kathy Bashanko, an intuitive human design mentor and guide to radical self-trust. Join us as we explore how your human design experiment can truly change your life. Hi there. So today my guest is Carla Unger, mother and dancing queen with nearly 20 years of experience working with the human body as a massage therapist and a yoga teacher, and being deeply curious about personal growth and transformation. In 2018, she expanded her wellness business, became an essential oil educator, supporting those interested in natural solutions for their health and wellness. Carla is a 2-4 emotional generator, triple split, right angle cross of contagion with the channels of curiosity, acceptance, discovery, recognition, and the beat. She's a living your design guide and loves to combine her passion for essential oils with human design. And I met Carla when we were at the Santa Fe HDHD, High Desert Human Design Conference, which that's coming up again in a little over a month. So I'm excited about that. She was passing around some essential oils at a past life regression event that we were in, and she gave us all this great stuff to try. And anyway, we became fast friends, I guess you would say from that. She's been on Transit Talk a couple of times with Jess and I as a guest. And I'm really excited for her to share her human design story with you here. So without further ado, Carla, I'd love for you to just say hello and tell people all about this story of yours.
Hello. So I think that for a lot of people, human design, like your awareness starts to prep you for it, right? There's something that happens as kind of this catalyst that opens you up to at least becoming aware of human design, because it definitely found me. But without the things that happened a couple months prior to that, I don't know if I would have been as aware, right? So I'm going to start there. In January of 2020, I had opened my own wellness center. I was offering massage therapy there. I was interviewing massage therapists. I had 3 treatment rooms. I had a small yoga studio where I could do small classes, like boutique style. And then I was teaching community classes for essential oil education. And it was wonderful. It was everything that I thought that I wanted, right? Um, but COVID, and I had to close, and I did not get any funding because I was a new business. And so I stayed permanently closed. And the week that I closed my business, I also lost my grandmother, whom I was very close with. She passed, and I had a missed miscarriage, which, with as much as I knew about the body, I had never heard of that term. I didn't realize that that was a thing.
What was it again? Oh, what?
A missed miscarriage.
I've never heard that
It's
term.
it's where your body, right, the uterine sac is continuing to grow. So your body still thinks that you're pregnant, but the fetus itself terminated prior to. So I went in to have my ultrasound, and I was measuring at 11 weeks, but the fetus had stopped growing at 7. And I was
Mm.
devastated. I didn't know that that was even a thing. And I think it was just like everything at one time, closing the business, burying my grandmother, losing the baby. It was a lot. It was a lot. And I was not ready to emotionally process all of that.
Yeah.
So I tried exerting some control and shutting it down and just throwing myself into work because I was finally able to go back to work. I transitioned from the wellness center into out call massage therapy, and yeah, just threw myself into it. But it was very interesting, the moment that I had. And I do have this, as it's recorded, it's on my website if anybody wants to go listen to it. It's me talking about the miscarriage and what I did for it, as far as like oil therapy, etc. because the hospital was like, well, if you don't want to pay the $1,500 copay for insurance, you're going to end up septic and you're going to this and you're going to that. And they were very like, very threatening, very scare tactic to try and get me to have the DNC. And I just stood up and was like, no, no, I'm not doing it. I trust my body to move through this process naturally. I have tools at home. I will do what I need to for myself. And they were just like, well, okay, but you're making the wrong decision. And I'm glad that I went that route. But that was, I think, the first time that I really honored my no,
Mm.
right, in the moment. And that was very empowering for myself. So anyway, over the course of that summertime in 2020, I was really, really avoiding dealing with all of the things. And I had three different massage clients tell me about the same psychic in the same week. And I was like,
Hmm.
okay, synchronicity, I'm listening, right?
Was this someone local, a local psychic, or?
It
Okay.
was, but she had transitioned to online. So it was this online community that she was offering. And so I checked it out. I signed up for it and was just like, I need something. I need something to pull me out of this darkness, out of this hole that I'm in, because everything that I'm doing for myself at home is not enough. I just wasn't dealing. I wasn't dealing with it. So I started to explore some of the different things that she had available. This was when tarot first came into my life. Started taking some classes with her, got my first tarot deck. Really was just trying to find my center again. And in one of her Facebook groups, she had this thing where everybody that was a part of the group could post what they did and what they offered. And there was somebody that was talking about human design and how it was like this thing that could bring you back to the body. And I was just like, it was instantly like lock in, scroll stop. What is this thing about the body that I don't know? So I jumped in. I signed up for her free 15-minute thing and then ended up purchasing a reading from her. And it was interesting because in the reading, I very much felt like there was a truth, but it also felt like it was regurgitated information. Like the way that the information was coming across felt very surface, but there was still something to it, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And all I can equate that to is that maybe she was just early enough in her own experiment that things hadn't been fully integrated. So the frequency wasn't there with the delivery, right? It was just information. But I jumped in. My curiosity got me, and I dove down the rabbit hole for a couple of months, came back out, and in January of 21 started going to school for it.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So how long was it from when you first saw your chart to when you started the training in 21? What, a couple months?
October
October.
of
Okay.
2020 to
Yeah.
January. But the science of differentiation was in the mail on its way to me as soon as that reading was done.
The book. Yeah.
So yeah, the book. And I really started experimenting with just waiting to respond. Like the very earliest experiment that I can remember was sitting on the couch, not really saying anything, just enjoying my cup of coffee before everybody got up out of bed. And as people started to come downstairs and engage, right at the time, my husband and my kids, I just didn't say anything. I waited to respond to see what would happen if I just waited to talk. That was literally the very first experiment that I did. And it
Yeah.
was a very, very eye-opening experiment because as far as my children were concerned, one of them was an open throat and the other one was defined manifesting generator, right? So throat center is where we communicate. And when it's open, you really need to be waiting to engage in
Yeah.
conversation. And she right away came over and laid down next to me, and I just kind of rubbed her head, and she didn't say anything, and I didn't say anything. And it was just this beautiful moment of silence. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting right now. And then the first thing that she said to me that morning was, good morning. It was just normally she's what's for breakfast and this and that, or I'm so
Right?
tired, but it was just this good morning. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow. And then my son comes downstairs, and for him, it was right away. He was just bebopping with his voice. It's undefined throat manifesting generator. So completely unconscious. He
Hey,
loves to make sounds.
you said undefined throat manifesting
I'm
generator.
sorry, defined throat, unconscious.
Unconscious. Okay. I was gonna
Yeah.
say that's not a thing, Carla.
No, you're right. You're right. You're right. It's not.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so interesting. So he's an unconscious manifesting generator, basically. Yeah. Huh.
Mhm.
Okay. And then just to clarify, because I know I said what your channels were at the beginning, and you put that in your bio, and I really like that. And I think I'm going to start to put that into the intros when I introduce people just in general. Is because even if people don't know what those are, just the names alone kind of give you a little bit of a
Mhm.
idea of the person. So, but you're a triple split, which I'm also a triple split. And I'm trying to see, didn't run a connection chart, but I'm looking at your chart to see if I think, you know what? The only thing that we don't bridge is I have the same, so one of my splits is also solar plexus to root, but with a different channel. So that one stays separate for us. But then you have the sacral to the identity center with that channel of the beat, which I love.
Mhm.
I'm always there's part of me that gets that energetic envy to that because my conscious sun is half of that channel. So I've got
Mhm.
14 as my conscious sun. And so we connect there, which is a compromise for me. But I've learned a lot about compromises that sometimes compromises feel really good in certain situations. And I haven't look you have to look to see like who's got the more resonance, right? Because if your two resonates with my 14 more than your 14, it might actually feel more of a compromise to you in different situations and whatever. So anyway, but that is one place that you don't really bridge a split for me there because I don't have the sacral. So that's not a split. So actually, no, I am still a triple split with you. I just have more centers defined. Yeah, we're still triple split because I've got the will center defined to the spleen with that 2644. So that's a whole new grouping for you. And that
Mhm.
grouping does not connect to anything. Oh, no, I lied. You have the 32, and I have the 54. So then that connects down there. We've got some connections, and I'm going off in too many places for anybody to possibly keep track. But I will put your chart on the page I have a page for the podcast, realhumandesignstories.com, and there'll be an episode page, and it'll have your chart. And who knows, maybe I'll put our connection chart there just because we were talking about it. We'll see. Um, but now I forgot why you even started talking about that. What were you talking about?
My son with his
Yes, yes,
unconscious
yes. There we
defined
go.
throat.
Squirrel. It's so funny,
Squirrel.
guys.
It's okay.
Before we got on today, Carla, who works heavily with essential oils, when she came on, she was putting something on on your roof of your
Spearmint.
mouth. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
remember if it was on your tongue or the roof of your mouth. And she said it was spearmint for connecting brain and throat. And I was
And
like, "Oh,
tongue. Yep.
I need some of that." And I, of course, went and looked, and I don't have it. So you can tell I would have benefited from it.
It's okay. It's okay. We're good.
We're
We're
good.
here.
So
We're
go
on
back
track.
to your story of your experiment and your son and him
Yeah.
coming in, and you're experimenting with the waiting to respond. You were talking.
Yeah. So that was the very earliest experiment that I did was just waiting to respond with the throat center. And primarily the reason I chose the throat center is because it's that top of the not self hierarchy. I just wanted to see what would happen if I started not constantly talking or expressing myself, right? And if you know my design, there's a lot of elements that speak to my need to externalize. I'm a 2-4. So there is this unconscious pressure in my body to externalize, to be able to share. A lot of my channels are collective. So that's a sharing theme there. But I also, one of the things that I've always constantly butted up against was when I share my opinions, when I share my ideas, if they're not invited, then I feel like I'm wasting my breath. And quite often, that makes me feel like I'm not in control, which is not self-theme for me. It's not safe for me to share my opinions. That's a spleen, undefined spleen theme, right? So I'm going to hold on to these ideas like, well, these people aren't safe and this isn't okay, and all of that. And so I just started waiting with expressing myself. And what I realized very early on in the experiment, without connecting the dots, is that that's the whole point. We as individuals have an opportunity to listen to our inner authority. And in that, we have an opportunity to be an outer authority to someone else. And so the power of words, the power of sharing thoughts, ideas, curiosities, stories, expressions, all of those things, it just became something for me that really was like, okay, if I just wait and then check in and make sure I have the energy to actually engage and that emotionally it feels like it's the right time, then I'm good to go. And then this mental awareness that I have that wants to constantly talk and share has the opportunity to do so in a way that feels good to me and to the other person. And it still remains one of the most valuable experiments that I've ever really engaged in as far as human design is concerned. So I started, I mean, in those first couple months between discovering human design and starting classes, and I was just reading and taking in raw, right? Listening to the free videos and articles and things that are on Jovian, and then engaging in other stuff as it came across in the way that it just, if it resonated, I would listen. I really started to feel a difference in my body. Like it felt better. It was more satisfying to wait. It was more satisfying. And there was also times where it would like bump up against, and I could very clearly start to see my mind come online and be like, oh, but what about this? And you should do this, and da 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 da. And it was kind of this like, it was weird at first to be able to have that awareness, like, wow, this is really what's happening right now. My mind wants to hijack my energy in this situation and make a decision because of A, B, and C. And I would go with it sometimes because that's also part of the experiment. You have to
Yeah.
also kind of go with it to learn what's the difference there. So it's been a very, very interesting process. But it's interesting too for me that like I try not to be I don't want to be dogmatic with this, right? It's an experiment for everyone, and you're going to resonate with certain pieces of it at certain times, and you're going to, it's sporadic, it's a non-linear journey. Like you're going to be pulled different ways for different things, and then awareness will come online for certain things at certain times. And so I feel like there's no one right way to do it because that's not what it's about. But I did very much for myself, um, as I experimented, I very much watched it unfold within the four transformations. Like I waited until it felt like the right time to experiment with determination, right? Which is how you take in food and drink. And then from there, I very much felt open at that point to experimenting with environment and like what that was like. Go
I
ahead.
know you're already kind of getting into it, but I just want to clarify. You said the four transformations, and now you are kind of saying what they are because they come from
Yes.
the variables. So
Yes.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it's because that term. I know there are a lot of people who don't even know what, it's a more advanced layer of human design. So they might not understand the
Yeah.
variables come from those arrows on your chart, and not all charts have the arrows on them. So if you need the advanced chart with the arrows, you can get that at my website so that you can
Awesome.
see what yours are. It's just as people are listening. So go on. You were saying, so experimenting with the determination, and you said,
Yeah. I really, I mean, you could enter into that part of the experiment mentally, right? Like you could learn about your variables and be like, "Oh, I have cold thirst. Well, from now on, I am no longer going to eat or drink anything cold or hot," right? But I didn't want to do that. That didn't make any sense to me to do that. I wanted to I'm curious. I wanted to be curious about the experiment itself and my body. I'm very, very somatically aware of my body. And so I waited until my body indicated it's time to experiment with this. I know of people, I have lots of friends in this community that, started with the other side of the chart, right? With personality variables, with motivation and transference. And, still to this day don't really follow their determination. And I am not the person to judge any which way. I just know for me, what happened was it was an unfolding. It started with just practicing strategy and authority. And then along the way, my body was like, okay, now we're going to experiment with taking in food and drink. I've only been eating and drinking cold or room temperature beverages since 2021, which is kind of wild, but I can honestly, like, my body feels so much better. My digestion, like physical digestion, but my brain works so much better. Right. And I have a receptive brain. And so it's constantly taking things in. And then I have an active mind, right? I'm pulling information out of it myself. And also other people can pull out of me too. And I get surprised sometimes at the things that I remember because I don't, it's not there. Like I'm not aware of it. But then someone will ask me something and it comes out. It's an interesting thing to start to really, I mean, like the experiment part of it is the gift. And it's always going to come back to strategy and authority, right? But these other experiments that are within the experiment, right? Really, okay, so here's a story. My environment is caves selective, right? This means that my body really, really likes to be in smaller spaces, my back to the wall. I like to see the entry exit points. Love to have something over my head. So even if I'm outside, I want, tree branches over my head or some kind of overhang or something along those lines, right? Big wide open sky is nice for a moment, especially if my back's to the ground, because
Yep.
then I can take it all in. But when I first started experimenting with this, it brought up a lot of stuff in my body because when I was a very young child, I was molested in a cave.
You were what?
I was
You're,
molested in a
oh,
cave
wow.
as a young child. So like I've always been slightly claustrophobic. I didn't like having things really close to me and right because it would trigger my body
Sure.
to bring up all of this stuff that even though I have done talk therapy and all these things, there's still cellular memory. The body hasn't had an opportunity to again feel safe yet. So, as I started experimenting, the first thing I did was get a weighted blanket and just allow for my body to feel the weight of, because when you go into a cave, it's less oxygen, so there's more of a pressure that's happening in the environment. That's always been triggering to me. So I started with a weighted blanket, and that made a huge difference in healing my body to
Hmm.
be able to be in a cave-like environment. And then now, 5 years later, it kills me because my experiment has brought me to Southern Utah to live at my dad's house and help him open an Airbnb. And I'm literally living in the basement.
Yeah. Wow. So I have so many questions about so many things that but I want to ask one now, and I want to make sure this is, I don't even know how to phrase it, but I'm just thinking about you, how you're saying that this happened to you in a cave and that's your environment. And I also know your cognition is touch. that feels like a cruel twist of fate, doesn't it? That you have touch, cognition, and caves environment. And
Mhm.
this is why I want to say I'm trying to find the right word. So, if I don't get it right, give me a little grace. But was cognition is how we take in
Mhm.
information, how we learn. Environment, and they say environment is really not that important when you're a child, but there's some significance here. So, was there some transformation of like you happened in this horrible experience that you feel I don't even know. I think there's a
I
question there
feel,
that doesn't have words. It's more of a
yeah,
feeling. You don't I
yeah,
don't have the
I
right word
do.
because the
I
words
do.
are going to be wrong.
And to be fully transparent, this was the second time I had been molested. This was a one-off situation. For about 4 years, from 4 to 8 years old, I was molested by a family member. And that always occurred underneath like a tent, a blanket in a cave environment. And I think what it did more than anything at that point in my life, like looking back at that, knowing I'm touch cognition, knowing I'm cave environment, um, I definitely shut down a part of myself because it just didn't feel safe, right? And as an undefined spleen, that was, you know, protection mode. I mean, as a child, that's all we're wanting is to feel safe. And so I think that as I grew up and as I very early on, by 9 years old, I was in therapy, right? Um, so I think just early on, there's always been this, again, I'm a triple split, so my mental awareness is attached to my throat, right? I can externalize, I can express, I can process what I'm mentally aware of over time. And emotionally, I can process how I feel about things and digesting the emotions over time. But it's been in, and I say this, and this is going to probably, I don't want to lose anyone, but I'm going to get chart specific for a moment. Okay. My personality sun is gate 29.
Mhm.
It is connected to the 46. I have the 46 three times in my body, three times between the personality and the design side.
And you're going to tell them what the 29 and the 46 are, right?
Yes. So the
Okay.
29, essentially it's the gate of yes. We're just
Or
gonna,
no.
or no, but
Yeah.
I feel it
It's gate
more
of
like
commitment.
this
Yeah.
energy rising up, right? It's the gate of commitment, perseverance. You have this power to say yes, to commit to a thing and persevere. And what are you persevering towards? You're persevering towards determination of the self. Gate 46. So it's this love for the body, and it's this opportunity to really not just be committed to a process, but to also have the ability to project the process as either a success or a failure, leading to the channel of discovery. Okay, that's the channel itself. 46 in the mandala, right? So the way that the gates are organized around the wheel. 46 is the gate before all of the splenic gates. So it's kind of this magical portal, if you will, into all of the gates of the spleen. And with that, all of the fears, physical fears that come with those splenic gates. And so I think for me, more than anything, having this experience as a child, right, where it seems like that cruel twist of fate, it did also allow for me to really be able to start to tune into my opportunity to gain wisdom around what was actually safe and what wasn't. Using the things that were going to ground my body and keep my body safe with my environment and my cognition, which is tied to your design sun earth. So I mean, that's what the awareness is for me now at this point. Those things didn't just happen. I mean, I was a victim, obviously, because I was a child, but like now as an adult, I'm no longer a victim to that process. I can see how it has helped shape the person that I am today.
Yeah, right. That's really profound. And so you were starting to tell us something, and I squirreled you off in a different direction. I think this was valuable to talk about, but you were talking about how you went through the four transformations and you're
Mm.
starting to go somewhere with that. And I didn't know if you were able to go back to where we were or if we've lost the.
Well, I feel like I think more than anything, what I wanted to share about that process is that if you really are experimenting with your design, right? You're following strategy and authority and you're experimenting with what that is and what that means to you, what it feels like in your body. And then if you start to really focus on the deconditioning of the body, like how that comes into play. And I'm not saying focus with intention, but just become aware of how it starts to present itself within your experience and how you start relating to that experience, right? Because the relating to the experience is a very conscious part of it. And that's where like transformation 3 and 4 come in with transference and, or not transference, sorry, perspective and motivation, right? So the variables on the right side of the chart. Those experiments, I mean, it's just more of watching. It's just watching it unfold, watching the way that it kind of starts to present itself. I started to very much see where it is because I have, for motivation, I have desire motivation. Okay, so I have an agenda. I want to talk about the thing. I want to experience the thing, right? Like there's very much a drive there. My personality sun Earth is 2930. This is where like that commitment part and also the emotional awareness and energy for an experience come into play. And if I can lock in on that, it feels good in my body. If I switch, if I'm trying to be innocent about it, well, I don't know, whatever. I've gotten married 4 times because of that.
Oh God. That,
It's, like to look at it truly as the way that it can show up in life, you get to know yourself on a whole other level in that way.
yeah. Now it's interesting because talking about it as in the whole idea of the experiment and what resonates or whatever. I know for me, I would find things that like in the beginning, it was like, okay, how am I supposed to do this? Because this is like the way I always think. What's the right way to do this? And I started to do that. And so I would read stuff and it just wouldn't stick. It wouldn't stick because what I've realized as a projector is none of it means anything to me until I actually am using it to understand something in real life. So
Mm.
for me, like perspective, I read all about that and I knew, okay, I'm want needs. Yeah, that makes sense. I care a lot about what other people want and need. I get that. Okay. I'm guilt motivation. Yeah, I want to help people. But I really didn't understand it in any way that really meant anything until I one day came across, we were going through family dynamics of stuff. There's three of us in the household, and my husband is survival perspective. I'm want needs. Those are in transference of each other, which means one of them is in the upper trigram, the other one's in the lower trigram, and they are in the same spot. And if you're flipping them, it's like you said with desire versus innocence, those are transference. And when you're coming from transference, you're not in alignment, right? So when someone's constantly bringing you into transference, that's not good for you. And our daughter is possibility perspective, right? She's a manifester. She's in her 20s and she would start just talking, informing us of her dreams and possibilities. And my husband, who understandably so, the only defined sacral in the house, the only one that's consistently always bringing an income, would always go to what's that going to cost? How are you going to pay for that? Da 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 into this whole thing. And I would see what she wants and needs and be like, we can't squash her dreams. We have to blah, blah, blah. But then in that sense, I would be taking him into transference by trying to get him. And so it was this whole where I would get into the whole thing of just observing it and saying, wow, this is human design has had me consistently saying, isn't that interesting?
Hmm. Isn't that interesting? And especially as a projector, because I mean, projectors are always, you're not here. I don't want to say you're not here to know yourself, you're not here to learn about yourself, but your existential question is, who are you? So you're always going to be able to learn more about yourself and your own chart dynamics through someone else,
And I'm
through,
a left angle profile too. So the
oh, there,
16,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yet my throat is defined through the 1/8, and I have a lot of individual circuitry in my um, design, and I'm a sixth line, and I very much talk about what comes natural for me as a second line, so there's so many dynamics, and you can get when you start trying to get into the how does this work and doing something right, you don't realize that you're not looking at the whole perspective. And so
Mhm.
that's why isn't that interesting has been such a liberating phrase for me to tell my mind because I have a completely open ajna. So I don't
Mhm.
need to know. I just need to keep asking questions and seeing what shows up, right? So,
So I have a fun story to share with you,
oh, I'd love to hear it.
specifically about the very, like, we're talking about the four transformations, right? So the very first experiment with cold thirst. Okay. I loved hot coffee, right? I love my coffee. I want to have my 1 to 2 cups of coffee in the morning. And I could not wrap my head around, literally was having a hard time with like, but what about coffee? If I'm supposed to just, I mean, I already was eating leftovers mostly, and I would already wait till my food cooled down. And mostly I just, didn't even think about it. I was taking care of the kids, making sure they had their food ready to go and like just serving everybody, cleaning up the kitchen a little bit before sitting down to eat. So it was kind of this, by the time I sat down, my food was already cooled off a lot anyway. And I've never been a fan. I'm allergic to hot peppers, right? Capsaicin, can't have it. My throat will close. So I've never really been drawn to hot, spicy foods anyway, etc. But hot coffee, wasn't giving it up. So I waited. And there was a day where I woke up and I didn't have any coffee in my house. And I was like, oh, snap. So I told the kids, be ready for school 15 minutes early. We're going to we're stopping to get coffee on the way. And they were excited because I got hot chocolate, right? And when I got there, instead of just placing my order, I looked at the menu and cold brew popped off at me. And I was like, let me have a cold brew. So I got it, and it was literally the most satisfying, incredible cold brew I'd ever had in my life. I was like, this is the best stuff ever. So I went back every day for 9 days in a row and then was like, can't be doing this anymore. This is getting too expensive. So I learned how to make cold brew. And that was it. That was the transition, experimenting with cold thirst. And then we were on a camping trip about 2 weeks later. And my body was just feeling like my brain was feeling better. My body was feeling better. I had started using the weighted blanket, right? So there was this whole transition happening with my body, and we're out here in nature and we were fishing. And my husband at the time was like, why don't you take a break from the kids, go do your own thing? There's a gigantic rock over there across the lake. Maybe go hit that spot for fishing. And it felt good. I was like, yeah, actually, yeah, I'm going over there. So I went to that spot, and I'm sitting on this rock and I'm just catch and release, right? So I'm fishing, and every time I would throw my line in, my vision, outer vision cognition in my environment, okay, my vision would just travel up the mountainside, and there was this cave in the center of the side of the mountain. And it was like the moment that I would see the cave, it would zing in my body. Like I just felt this frequency of, I want that cave. And I'd get a bite. Kathy, I caught 16 fish that day, cracking up, laughing, having a blast fishing. Just, I would catch it, reel it in, let it off the hook. I would cast back out, look back at the cave, zing, catch a fish. It was the most insane, magical moment ever. But it was, in my experience, the way I was relating to it, I started realizing, wow, my body really is, the frequency of my body is changing. So
Yeah, that's
it,
cool.
yeah, you just, those experiments and stories really do matter because they validate your own experiment.
Yeah. I want to back way up to when the beginning of when you were talking about this. And when you first ran your chart, do you remember the thing that you read about yourself that where you responded and was like, this is something I need?
So the girl that ran my chart, right, when she first did her reading for me, the thing that she said that really hit home the most was how important it was for me to honor my yes and my no because of my 29 son, right? Like this energetic commitment process. And I felt that, again, I've been married 4 times. Like, I don't know how much more you can commit.
And were
and,
you married
and
at the time of this
I
reading?
was, I was married. And I had initiated it because it was going to make my life easier. Our kids were going to separate schools, and to have them go to the same school, we needed to be married. So we got married
Mm.
on my birthday.
And you are no longer married, right?
No, no, my experiment took me to a divorce with that person, which, I still feel really sad about. I mean, we were friends for 20 years before we started dating, and he's a human being that is just absolutely living his design without even knowing it, and is very, I mean, I still have a lot of love for this person, care about him very much, still very much love my stepdaughter. Don't get to talk to her, see her very often, and that sucks. So it's one of those situations, but I do feel like it was absolutely the correct thing to do. And the experience I've had since our divorce has been nothing but satisfying. And at the same time, the process of the divorce itself, there was the least amount of resistance that there could possibly be. So again, a validation to me that it really was the right thing to be doing.
That's really brave. There's a lot of people, like one of the things I notice when I'm doing readings or, clients that I work with on mentoring and stuff, where there's a lot of fear that comes up of like, I can't really honor my authority or I'm going to lose everyone that's important to me.
Hmm.
Wondering what you would say to those people.
Um, well, I mean, the partnership analysis, right? Like the connection chart really can give you a lot of information around why you're maybe hooked mentally, like why it is that you think that you can't lose these people that mean everything to you. Sometimes that can give you a lot of information just by itself. Um, but really the thing that I leaned on the most throughout that entire process, because again, there were kids involved,
Hmm.
right? And the thing that I kept telling myself through the trust fall of strategy and authority was that if it's going to be correct for me, it will ultimately be correct for them.
Yeah.
And I'm not the one to dictate or control or say what that is. It just had to be an unfolding and trusting the process. That's what it was.
Yeah, there's so much So much going on with, the talk about the shift in 2027 mutation. So if you're new to human design, you don't know what that is. Basically, into as we get closer to 2027, we're moving to this era of, you'll hear it talked about the cross of the sleeping phoenix. It's this really time where we have to embrace our individualism in order to really have the cohesive, beautiful tribe that we're meant to have. And I forget what it's called. I don't remember. There's a theory out there. It's not part of spiral dynamics. I don't know, but it's this idea that as we level up, in order for us to continually level up as a society, there have to be outliers who continually move outside ahead of the tribe, and then the tribe catches up. But if nobody will go because they're afraid the tribe won't go, it's like the people who will just stay, they'll all just stay on the Titanic as the ship sinks.
Mhm.
Somebody's got to be brave enough to get off and get into the lifeboat in the crazy ocean. So, but it's hard when you're the one who's going to be out alone. So, you're risking being alone. But one of the things that I've really noticed is I continually keep thinking I am having these moments of embracing my individuality that say to particular people in my life things like, I love you, but I love me more. So this, and it's not, and I don't think that's wrong. We have to put on our own oxygen mask first, because if I'm going to have a relationship with you, I have to take care of me, right?
Mhm.
And as I have done that, I've continually been almost surprised by the fact that eventually that person comes along. They might be
Mhm.
a few steps behind a lot of the times, but they're like, okay, I get it. Um, and so I wonder how long, I don't want, if I'm getting too personal or whatever, but how long have you been divorced now?
2 years.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And you have this, like you said, all this collective circuitry, and you have the individual circuitry, but you only have a
Mhm.
couple of tribal gates even.
Yep. I'm not a very tribal person.
Yeah. And
Yep.
but you have the gate 59,
Yep.
and that's a pretty intense tribal gate. That's your Mercury and your fifth line. So you're here to talk about this intimacy. And the only other tribal gate that you have is the 26. No, in the 45. So you have the 26 on your undefined will. So
Mhm.
what's that define?
Tune.
So that's your Neptune. Okay. So very
Mhm.
spiritually tribal. And then you have that 45. This is
Unconscious
so
Mercury.
small.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you're here to really speak to the tribe.
Yes.
That's interesting. I'm not sure what that means, but that's interesting. And I also noticed that, when we were talking about how we connect, I didn't even notice that 45. And so I have the 21, hanging 21.
Mhm.
You and I formed the money line. So
Uh-huh.
we're gonna get rich together, okay? No, everybody always thinks that's about what that means, but that's not what it's about. It's about how the money is distributed. It doesn't always mean that it's coming to us. But yeah, but it could. You want to get rich?
Yeah, let's do it. No. um, that's funny. That's funny actually that you're saying that because like the theme over the last 2 years, because I've been moving through my Uranus opposition, which is a cycle that you move through around your 40s, early 40s. Um, my Uranus, I have 14 four times in my chart. It's my design Earth, and I have it four times, and two of those placements are my Uranus
Oh, it's your unconscious moon.
and my unconscious moon.
Did you
Hmm.
do our unconscious moon?
No, and I want to.
Okay. I also have, just for anyone listening too, if you go to my website, you can download the karmic attraction guide. It's a free report you can do that's kind of like the class, but there's a master class that Jess and I have done a few times on the unconscious moon and how it speaks to our karmic attraction. So that would be interesting to consider from gate 14 perspective. And
Yeah.
yeah, so go on.
So this whole last 2 years, it has been this process of really understanding gate 14 and money and what money means and moving through. And I like now that I'm getting to the other side of it, I can really look at this last 2 years as this process of understanding the hexagram in its entirety, the foundational aspect of the first line and the second line and the third. I can think of so many experiences and things that I have been literally living out the 14th hexagram. And ultimately, it ends in humility and that it is not about the money. And now so much of things like the things that are now coming into my awareness and into my aura and the things I'm having responses for, it's not about the money. It's not about the money. The energy, my yes, and where I'm
Okay, now I
committing
got
my
the
energy.
earworm. You know the song? It's not about the
No,
money. Who is that? Is it Kesha? No. Who is that song?
I don't know.
Oh, I'll have to find it later. There's a
Yeah.
song. It's a pop song. Anyway, go on. So four, but you have the gate four times, but only
Hmm.
at two specific lines. You have it twice in line four and twice in
Hmm.
line two.
Yep.
So very, very specific. And 14.4 as your design earth. So that's your life's purpose.
Hmm. Yep.
And I'm just kind of processing as I was saying it now. So, and then the second line, it's your unconscious moon. So that's what draws people to you. It's what charges your aura, that attracts the people that bring you the experiences that you need in order to fulfill your karma, release the different things, learn the lessons, have the things. So for good or bad, this is what draws people to you. And then um, the third one, also on your design side, is your Uranus in line four, and that is what makes you a little bit different, a little bit more unusual. And so looking at all of that, and then you also have the second line in your conscious Uranus. So bringing all of that in with what you know now, and you said humility, and that's line six. That's my conscious.
Yes.
I have gate 14 one time. So it's this whole idea that money isn't everything. And
Exactly.
14 is always said to be the most, like, people think of the money line as being all about the money, but it's often said that the channel of the beat, like those are the people, they're here to drive the businesses forward to really make things happen. So there's a lot in your chart that can feel like pressure to um, be
Hmm.
prosperous.
Yep.
But the 14 line six is like money isn't everything. Money is um, it specifically says God's will. Like it's either you
Yep.
have it or you don't. And part of it is being able to not see it as necessary
Hmm.
for your sense of worth,
Yes.
your happiness, to be able to be happy sitting in a field looking at the flowers, even if you don't know where you're going to sleep that night.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're going through something right now with understanding that 14, and I just railroaded your whole conversation with my.
It's perfect. I love it because you laid it out perfectly. Um, yeah, everything. I mean, so the cross of contagion. I am here to share what I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And I'm a 2/4, so I'm going to be a missionary for the thing that I am super stoked about.
And what
And
is that right now?
well, there's actually a few things. I have been for years wanting to do a fundraiser for a charity. And primarily the reason driving this, I mean, obviously, I'm a lot of collective energy. So there's a lot of like, I want to do for the collective and humanity and right. And it's impersonal and just spread the wealth to everyone. Okay. So there's that aspect of it. But specifically, the company that I am a wellness advocate for essential oils, they have a charity that is called the Healing Hands Foundation, and they will match any fundraiser that you do up to $10,000. So I've been wanting to do this fundraiser for a charity where I can earn, like raise funds for them. And then this company is going to come in and match it. And that feels like magic to me. I want to be able to do that, right? And recently, I've had the opportunity to connect with somebody in network that works for a charity, and they're interested in partnering with me to create this fundraiser to then be able to do this. So this is something that's like actively happening and unfolding right now that feels phenomenal,
Do you feel
right?
comfortable telling us the charity?
It is Henry's Place. It is here in Cedar City, Utah, where I live. Well, I kind of live outside of Cedar, but that's fine. Um, it's a camp for kids that are at risk that are actually from Las Vegas, where I'm originally from. So they get to come into Cedar City over the course of the summertime. They run back-to-back camps for these different at-risk kids, and they just give them a camp experience because they're never going to have that opportunity, right? So these are kids who have been homeless, that are not yet in the system, like their parents are still part of the equation, but they're not receiving support they need, the care they need, etc. So they're wanting this opportunity to be able to support these kids so that they can have these experiences to be able to, touch on, it's a Christian camp, so touch on spirituality, etc. As far as that part of it is concerned, I mean, it's part of the Maya. I'm okay with it. um, Outside of that, I think what's more important is that these kids are getting an opportunity to experience something they've never been able to do. And that feels really good to be a part of. So,
That's exciting.
yeah.
So, you're in the process of building this fundraiser.
Yes, I'm in the process of putting the fundraiser together and building it out, and I'm sure I will be all over social media with it because,
Okay,
yep.
so we can keep track of that. So,
Um,
and then what else are you doing? What are you doing that's more,
well, okay, so I've been a massage therapist for 20 years,
mhm.
and touch cognition. I have had a lot of experience. I have touched tens of thousands of bodies over 20 years. And I've been told over and over again. I mean, that second line being called out, I did not believe it at first, but now 20 years into it, I can say I am a very good massage therapist. Recently, I had somebody on my table and they just literally in the middle of their massage was like, "You need to be teaching massage."
Mm,
And I was just kind of, hmm. And when I first moved to Utah, a lot of my clients, longstanding clients, were you should, if you're not going to be doing massage, you should teach. So I had originally checked into opportunities to teach here, but there isn't a school nearby. So I just kind of set it aside but I've been wanting to transition out of massage full time and into something else. And it doesn't feel right to just like completely walk away from it because I have so much experience. And so one of the things that I've just discovered is that I can actually be a massage instructor and have up to 4 apprentices at one time and teach them massage, and they can legitimately get licensed and do the thing. So I can't call myself a massage school per se, but that's ultimately what it
like
would be.
you'd be like an instructor on your own or
Mhm.
a mentor, maybe.
Yep, on my own, teaching them as an apprenticeship, and yeah, and that feels so good.
Yeah,
So
that's exciting.
I'm gonna see how that continues to unfold. But for me,
Hmm.
again, that's one of those where I can give back, and that feels really good. Um, yeah,
Tell
I
us,
mean, go ahead.
tell us about what you do with your essential oils in human design, because I think that's something we haven't touched on, and we're getting toward the end, but I'd really like to
Okay.
make sure we give that a little time on what you do with the essential oils that you make and the new moons and all that good stuff we've talked about a little bit on the
Yeah.
transit talk sometimes.
Yeah. So I have always had this tendency to blend the things that I am passionate about, right? Because if I'm doing that, it doesn't feel like work. So if I can constantly take all the things that I like to do and put them together and create something, that's my way of being able to creatively express myself. So early on with my experiment in human design. And I've always, because oils have been around for much longer than design has, I have always used my essential oils for emotional support. And then when I discovered that I am an emotional being, right, I have a defined solar plexus, it was, oh, now I get it. Now I understand how important those have been to me in my process because it's a second line. So I am projecting out these emotions that I'm not actually like entirely sure what it is that I'm feeling, right? I'm trying to focus on the thing, on the feeling with that channel of recognition. And oils have always been really helpful for that. I've always been able to, you smell it. And just as a little, I guess, anatomy lesson, our olfactory nerve directly connects to the limbic brain. So it's going to create a physiological response in your body when you smell something. This is why when you smell smoke, you become alert, right? Something's on fire. Is it safe? You smell gardenia and it transports you back to your grandmother's arms.
Yeah.
It's there's the physiological response that occurs in the body. And so I started to play with pairing oils with design. And I, for myself, didn't even discover that somebody else has already done this, I guess, along the way. Like there's someone who has already written a book about it, etc. I've really just kind of stayed in my lane and done my thing with it. And one of the things that I got really drawn to was because essential oils are so potent at a cellular level with the body, I started focusing on the body itself. Like, how can you help the body as it moves through its deconditioning process? That was the first blend that I made. And I actually introduced that at in Aura, which was an event that I held with Kelsey Tortorici. She's a 5-2 manifester, a good friend of mine. And we, at this event, it was just about being in aura. So like everything we were doing was really about understanding what the experience was that your body was having in relation to the people in your environment and the conversations, etc. So this blend that I gave everybody, I got incredible feedback from that. And even over the course of like weeks and months afterward, people were still, this is still hitting, still I still like, I love the way that I feel when I use this. Because essential oils have this capacity to, you can connect with it, right? Like it's called anchoring. So you can really anchor in what it is that you're processing as you're experiencing somatic awareness. So that's how it started. It's transitioned now into I have what's called Nurture Your Nature, which are essential oil rollers for your body and mind. So both the design side and the personality side. It comes with a chart reading, very short, but the synthesis of why I choose what I choose as far as oils are concerned. I'm also doing new moon blends. So based on the energetic frequency of the new moon, I create a blend and you work with that over the cycle of the moon. Just in the last 2 months, I've started playing with it for myself and adding in an additional oil at the full moon. So like you just remove the cap on the oil bottle and you add in the extra little bit and it becomes a whole new blend for the second half of the cycle, which is just yummy. It's awesome. It's been a lot of fun. I do partnership oils. So like you and your husband, you guys would have an oil that is your partnership. So the connection chart. I do cosmic cycle support. So for solar returns, for Saturn return, Uranus opposition, Chiron return, like I've just had fun mixing blend like oils with human design. And I try to be really aware, like if somebody is practicing determination and they're consecutive and it's like one oil, well, I will honor that. I will find the one oil. If it's alternating, I'll give you two.
Oh, I never even thought about consecutive, so in determination, if you have consecutive, that means you do one thing at a time, right? So
Mhm.
um, and so, or that would be even what's the other one is all alternating?
Alternating.
But
So it's like a little bit
you
of this, a little bit of
still
that.
wouldn't want to have blends for that either, right? So,
Correct.
Yeah, for
Single thing.
anybody. Yeah, so anybody who's has that, like I never even thought about that when it comes to other things for your body. And that can become almost paralyzing, right? Because like how do I wash my hair when my shampoos are going to have multiple ingredients and how,
Hmm.
and yeah, well, that could be a whole nother can of worms. And not we could go into the whole thing about my how some people with my sister has consecutive determination, and she is adamant that it doesn't impact how she from her food but she does very much do one thing at a time. So like when
Hmm.
she is eating, she is focused on eating. When she is reading, she is focused on reading. If she's not somebody who's me, I'm always walking around doing something and listening to a podcast and all that stuff, which is probably not great for me either. But anyway, okay, so if people want to connect with you about all of these different wonderful things, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
My website,
Which is,
wellnesswithcarla.com.
okay, and it's
Yep.
Carla. So
Yes.
wellnesswithcarla.com. That's pretty straightforward. And
It's got everything there. If you want to talk, you could always reach out on Instagram. Same thing, Wellness with Carla.
that's your most frequent social media.
Yeah.
Okay. And we didn't even get to talk about dancing, and that was something I wanted to talk about, but we will just have to chat about that on our own. So, okay.
Okay.
So I want to thank you so much. This has been a wealth of knowledge and great information. I enjoyed it very much. So, thank you
Thank you
so
for
much.
having me.
Okay. Peace
Thanks.
out, everybody. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Real Human Design Stories. I hope these stories help you see how human design can reframe not only your own story, but also the stories you tell yourself about your relationships. If you're ready to tell a more empowered story about who you came here to be, I invite you to explore ways to work with me directly at kathybashanko.com. Supporting this podcast is easy. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a 5-star rating, like, comment, and share with your friends. This helps the podcast grow the most. You can also become a contributing sponsor for as little as 99 cents a month. Details are available at realhumandesignstories.com. Thanks again for being here. Real Human Design Stories is created and hosted by me, Kathy Bashanko. Peace out, everybody.